Gundam Maniacs, welcome to the Gundam Explained Show. I am your Gundam, Adam Blue. I think I had to say that. I just had to one day. But no, yeah, and joining me, Steven from Midnight Hatter. Steven, what's up, man?
Not a lot, happy to join you. Thank you
Yep,
for having me on late notice. I
of
know
course.
I think I texted you about 30 minutes ago and said, "Hey, what's the story for tonight's show? Can I
Yeah.
can I
No,
still
I know,
pop
because
in?"
I wasn't too sure if you were gonna be on or not, but I am so glad you were because, I think it makes it easier, especially it's almost like, Jamie on Joe Rogan?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, you gotta have
I
young
can
Jamie.
I can claim something about Gundam, and then I go, "Is that true? Is that true, Steven? Is
Hold
that true?"
on, wait, let me look that up.
No,
No,
but
that's
but anyway, cool to see people in the chat. We've got our mod, Ian Hansen, who just bought the Rising Freedom Gundam Metal robot spirits, which it's one of those things where it looks like a Gundam, but they designed it in a way that it's very noticeable. Like, oh, that's
yeah.
a new unique Gundam. Even though they're all the same. And then Johnny Tacoma, hope Hatter is doing all right. Hatter, you doing all right?
Oh, hey, cheers. Yeah, I'm hanging in there. We'll be all right. We're gonna make it through this.
That's good. Barry BB, Zionic Shadow playing some GBO2, living the dream.
Amen, brother.
Let's see. And then Midnight Hatter, of course. Midnight Hatter. No, I'm joking. Talos Mobius, good to see you. Aoshi-san, good to see you. Well, cool. We'll get started here. So today, a couple things I want to talk about. One is if you saw that recent video I put up about the Gundam movie, I kind of want to talk more about that and the TV show, the live action. I'd love to talk about that. Speculate. Maybe we can do some more fan casting.
That was part of the reason I was like, "I can't miss this show." I was like, when I saw that you dropped that video the other day, I was like, "This is huge," you know?
Yeah, and it's almost like a too good to be true, and we'll get into that. Uh,
Yeah.
but also, I want to talk about the game, and I talked about it a little bit. But Gundam 3D Battle on the 3DS, it's absolutely amazing, and we'll talk about that shortly too. But
I'm
first,
looking forward to that.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I don't know you've had a busy week, but have you gotten into anything Gumpla related?
Well, so I did as P Bandai is always dropping these, like, re-releases, and the recent re-release was, included like, the new batch that came out included the Varguil, from
Oh
Moon
yeah,
Gundam, which is
yeah.
one that I missed out on the first release. And so I had to jump on that, you
Oh,
know?
cool.
Um, but yeah, so I posted on Discord about it. I was like, "Hey, if you guys want, it's your second chance to get the Varguil, which I think is an awesome kit.
Yeah,
Obviously,
love the
if you don't,
design.
yeah, and it's so affordable. You and I always talk about like the cost of Gunpla, and the Varguil's like $24
It's
plus
funny
$10 shipping.
It's funny because those neat suits that sometimes we're scouring on eBay, like when they drop on P Bandai, they're cheap,
And same thing for one of the other releases, which is going to be near and dear to my heart, is the 0088 version of the Zeta,
right on
which
time. Barry BB with yeah,
now I have to say, for Christmas, my brother actually was super clutch and bought me a 0088 Zeta. So I had one, but I'm not going to tell him that he can get it for $27 when he probably paid closer to 80 on
Oh, I see.
it. So, but that said, I did pick up a spare one. So,
I might need to also.
maybe, maybe, just maybe, when we hit 4,000 subscribers over on Midnight Hatter, we're gonna be giving away one of these 0088 Zeta Gundams. So,
That is a great
stay tuned
one.
for details on that.
Great idea.
But yeah, like you said, it's been a busy week. I haven't had a lot of time to get up to stuff, but today, obviously, it is the first, and so my Patreon
Hmm,
perks went out today.
that's right. It is the first. Your Patreon perks went. Okay, cool. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, check out the stuff Steven has released, or if you just didn't know he had a Patreon, links in the description for his channel. Check that stuff out. Because yeah, that's
Cheers.
a good point. So when it comes to supporter stuff, your stuff is releasing today on yours, and I decided based on Ashley, our social media expert, or there's a better term
Admin.
for that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Um, she came up with an idea about doing a cosmic. It's called Cosmic Era. Cosmic Era. Yeah, Seed. The whole like she wants to do like kind of a deep dive of the world.
Oh,
And so that
sweet.
I think that would be the next G Watch for February. So any other supporters that know your seed lore, let me know, and we'll get a group together. Whoever,
And you know
yeah,
what's kinda cool about Seed is I always think about Seed as kind of like the Star Wars prequels
oh,
because you know how, Star Wars, obviously, the original trilogy is fantastic, and it's the same with Gundam, like, the original Gundam series, fantastic. But then, like, with the prequels, you get this very deep political drama and intrigue that's going on, and you and I've talked about this before, like, during your first watch through of Seed and Seed Destiny, it's like, this is very intensely politically driven.
right.
Like, Seed is very much has the same energy as the Star Wars prequels have. Am I speaking
No,
out of turn?
no, I think you're right, and I also think what George Lucas was doing with the prequels, I didn't appreciate at the time, but through over time, I've realized, oh, he's doing what in a way what Gundam does good, and that's being able to integrate political sort of intrigue within the greater story without it bogging down things. And I think the thing with the prequels is there was too much talk about specifically trade federation trade routes to where we couldn't correlate the trade routing with space combat. So
Yeah.
I think, and the force. So that made it Eh, so it's like George Lucas knew what he was trying to do, and that's why he was asking for other people to direct these films, the prequels. But you're right, and I think Seed is almost like that. Dives into that a whole lot, but even then, sometimes it's too much. I think it does a great job in Destiny of doing it.
Same
Um,
here. I
yeah,
mean, especially just the story of Mir Campbell is like, I mean,
yeah.
that's peak
It
storytelling.
also because each character has an arc, but then it somehow related to another character's arc that they're going on, and it
It's like one of
it's
those Guy Ritchie movies where, like,
oh
everyone's
yeah.
kinda got different things going on and they all
Lock, Stock,
intersect at different points.
2
Yeah,
Smoking
Lock,
Barrels or something like
Stocks,
that. Snatch.
Snatch,
Yeah.
Rock and Rolla is another good one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good, point, and that's actually why I'm sort of excited for this, Freedom movie because it's one, I liked how Destiny played out, and I like the designs of the mobile suits, and then with, like, what the trailers and stuff we've seen of this new Seed Freedom movie, they do the kind of the CGI mobile suits, which I think look good because they almost make them look animation like,
Yeah,
and
they're getting better at that sort of dressing up 3D models to look like 2D animation,
yeah.
which is nice.
So, did you know they dropped a 6-minute clip that was only available to watch in, I think, in Japan, maybe some other territories, and then
I
someone I'll
didn't.
have to drop it. Oh, unless it is in, yeah, I think it's in the Discord, the Gun Explain Discord.
I'll go have a look after this, yeah.
Yeah, it it actually looks great. The first 6 minutes are just action. And it has the characters
Can't go
you would
wrong with
want to
that.
be there. Yeah, and the action looks great, the mobile suits look great, and it does the thing I like where it's almost like the camera has this draw distance so you can see, like, the battle line of mobile suits moving forward and then all the firing. It's like it's what I want out of mecha combat, so
You
it's
know, I'm
just
surprised that more, anime and CG filmmakers haven't tried to do some of the things that you see in traditional cinema. Like, you think about movies like Dunkirk is famous for having, like, that one long, steady shot, right?
yeah.
Which I know is easier to do in CG or in a 2D animated movie, but, like, it would be cool to see those types of cinematic feel shots done, tastefully in, like, a Gundam anime.
Yeah, and that's what I like about UC Gundam, especially Tomino stuff. I think he plans for that. He tries to make scenes look cinematic, which I think get lost. I think Seed is known for mobile suits having those crazy poses, that
Yeah.
aren't, I'm fine with it, but it's just funny how like UC Gundam does a good job of making, other than the weird RX-78-2 animation sometimes, but making the robot look like a robot, instead of a superhero pose.
Yeah.
Isn't that a joke too, where like the landing of the superhero where the hands on the
Yeah,
ground.
they did that in Deadpool, right?
Yeah,
Oh, superhero landing, here comes.
it's like in Seed, that's what the mobile suits do, and it's yeah.
Yeah, they all have to
Um,
do their Power Ranger, you know.
oh yeah, all the stuff to set up. Yeah. Okay, King Dylan is saying it's on YouTube, so maybe someone reposted it because
There
originally
you
it
go.
was locked for other regions. So that's cool. So speaking of Seed, what is really cool, out of the blue, Levi sent me this shirt, and it's got some more stuff on the back there.
Ooh, look at that swag.
Yeah, no, this is really cool. And then this is going to be a challenge. Like, I need to be able to. How can I wear this and look cool?
Well, I think the answer's in the question, is you will look cool if you wear that.
I like that. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna be wearing this tomorrow night on the date with my wife at a fancy restaurant.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a Valentine's Day date if I ever heard it, like
No, no, but it was really cool. They sent this stuff over. Apparently, like I think on the 8th or 18th, I forget, that Levi's gonna have a whole line of um Gundam Seed stuff, pretty much. And so it's
see,
kind of
and
cool to
people
get a
don't
look.
think about this kind of stuff like, it's interesting the type of marketing moves that Gundam makes, right? Like the partnership with G Fuel makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
gaming Gundam has a lot of overlap. The Formula 1 partnership, that was one that was kind of
Out of
interesting. Like you and I didn't
yeah,
understand it really well, but it was crazy because Ashley, she was like, "Yeah, Formula 1, got it." They like
yeah,
Formula 1 Gundam makes sense. It's like perfect. Everyone like Japanese audiences love the race car drivers. They love this like like I said, it's crazy because you and I didn't make that connection. And so now you have
yeah,
like, what is I think Levi's is an American company,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
So like Levi's partnership with Gundam, to a lot of people that would seem kind of out of the blue. I think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I think especially using Seed, even though again, like I would prefer it being UC stuff, but you know what? I'm fine with the stuff that might be a little more popular, just to kind of get, the Gundam name out there.
Well, you know what they say on Twitter is that Seed saved Gundam, so
Uh, it could have, knowing what came before it. Not that it was bad, but it was just, not, I don't know. Because I keep forgetting that a lot of people kind of grew up with that stuff. And sometimes if you don't have any other frame of reference, when you're seeing something like Gundam Wing, it's amazing. Like,
it's funny because, like, and this is one of the reasons that I think you and I both get along so well and kind of have a fun dynamic is that, you know, I kind of grew up on UC Gundam and you got into Gundam only, 4 years ago or so,
yeah,
and we both kind of gravitated towards UC, but
yeah,
there's a large group of Gundam fans that are either in the same age group as us or just slightly younger that like literally grew up with Gundam Seed and like that's what they know as Gundam. And so it's
yeah,
very interesting to me. You know, I'm not one of those people that likes to really get down in the trenches and engage with like the Gundam fandom wars,
yeah,
but
like
like
console wars, but Gundam.
yeah, like I just it's like I like video games. I don't care if it's Xbox or PlayStation. Um so it's interesting to me to kind of see that dynamic play out, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It is very interesting because like what you brought up, yeah, when I got into Gundam very late, it's funny how looking at all the Gundam stuff, I was just drawn to the UC stuff. And that tells me inherently it has its own tone. It has its own thing, even though there's similar robots with spikes on their head. There really is differences in storytelling, designs, and it's neat that these Japanese creators were really able to keep that in mind as they were creating these new stories. So it can be something else for someone else. I want to get more into that in terms of like the movie stuff. We'll get into that a little later. A couple things I want to talk about real quick is this is not Gundam related, but the Symphony of the Night vinyl just came out. Um,
Oh, nice.
I've been listening to this nonstop. It is amazing because I just beat the game again recently. I think I'd mentioned that before. Um, it's really cool because it has some cool artwork of the characters like Maria, Richter, Dracula. But the problem is Alucard just looks like a child. I know what they were going for, but
Yeah, it's eternal youth. I mean, come on, you
yeah.
gotta
No, I know they were trying to go for the more feminine looking, slender, pale, but
right. There's that androgynous
yeah.
appeal. I love the artwork from that. It reminds me a lot of like my favorite JRPG, which I don't know if we've talked about it before, but have you ever played Vagrant Story on the PS1?
No, but I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
That
It's same
yeah.
same sort of aesthetic, and Sydney Losterot, who's the villain of that game, very androgynous, obviously has a feminine name like Sydney. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, has
I'll
those
have to
boyish
check
looks.
that out. Well, it's just funny because I purposely kind of skipped over JRPGs, like because I remember back in the day, like when Final Fantasy was first that thing, I'd play and be like, well, this isn't for me. And
Mhm.
I've pretty much kind of stuck with that. And I've never really got far in any JRPG. I think it's because I'm looking for mechanics over story, but I do understand sometimes story.
Yeah, well, and I think that it's unfair to have these types of categories, and this is why, I'm very much against like,
Labels.
yeah, labels and things
Yeah.
like that. Is like the blanket term of JRPG ends up being applied to things that don't necessarily fit the kind of mold that you would think of. And Final
Yeah.
Fantasy is a good example of that. Like, because the only Final Fantasy I ever played was Final Fantasy Tactics, which was like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and
I've
it's like,
played that. That's actually the only one I've played through.
yeah,
That
exactly. That
game.
was fun. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Vagrant Story is interesting because it's 3D and the combat is actually in a 3D plane. So it's almost more like a tactics style game or like
Oh,
a G generation game where you actually move your units around the map. Of
okay.
course, it's in
That's
a
part of the
3D space.
strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, part of the tactics is your positioning, and then of course the cool thing is that there's timing incorporated into that. So like if you don't move within a certain time period, then your enemies are going to move and attack you. And so it's like,
Oh,
so I highly recommend it to anybody who's dubious about JRPGs because I think that it bridges the gap between that like typical turn-based combat and like real-time combat that Adam and I prefer.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, the art style is something.
Oh,
Like
there's something to that.
and it's funny because like with Castlevania, I think it was with Symphony of the Night, they started with that kind of art style, the very classical. And then I think by the time they got to the DS on Dawn of Sorrow, they had to change it to anime specifically because they said, "Oh, we have to get a wider audience." I find
Yeah,
that
get with the times, right?
interesting.
Like,
Yeah, but
ditch the papyrus and,
but no, when in fact the older artwork, or not the older, but the Symphony of the Night era artwork is timeless, whereas the DS anime looks like 2000s anime.
exactly.
Yeah, it's
It's
interesting
there's
stuff.
something to be said there. Is like when
Yeah.
you have that, there's an iconic art style that is timeless versus, keeping up with trends.
Yeah, and so gaming related, I had mentioned before that I had downloaded the Gundam Battle 3DS to play in a DS emulator, and I was 3DS emulator. I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. But one thing that I tend to appreciate from the 3DS that I don't think a lot of people did was the 3D. Depending on the game, the 3D helped with that immersion. And for sure, the Gundam game, it's that. And the developer is the developer that made the PSP and PS Vita battle games. So they're the
Oh,
third person combat.
yeah.
Um, and so this was the last one of that kind, and this seems to have like it's so refined. Not only does this look better than them by a lot, and the 3DS was actually pretty good for what it was like. Its lighting technology was pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, I love the controls. I love that there's no HUD because the second screen is all that information. And in it, when you play the game, when you choose your character, you choose if you want to be a new type or not. Because if you choose
That's so
to be
cool.
a new type, you can choose what your new type kind of attribute is. And then while you're playing the game, you can pull off new type moves like a faster boost, a faster, harder swing. But if you're not a new type, the character has specials too, but it's more old type. It's cool that they went about it that way.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, I was just gonna ask, so what's the cost benefit of choosing new type versus old type, and what's the kind of trade-off that you get? Because when it comes to game mechanics, those are things that you and I are always talking about is like,
Yeah.
there's always got to be you don't want to make any option the obvious option, right? Like,
Right. Exactly. And it's interesting because the whole game's in Japanese. There's a leveling up system, which I just figured that out. Like, and then there's what it seems like too is if you choose a new type, if you're in a Gundam with some sort of psycho thing going on, or psychomu system, you can then use that, leverage that. But I haven't tried as not a new type. I just think it's cool that this game did that where you can
yeah.
do your because there's so many levels and it's amazing because it starts from 0079 the beginning and it goes up through unicorn. And
Wow.
yeah, and you can unlock the suits. It has transforming. So if you're the Zeta, you can press a button to transform to the Wave Rider. It has space and ground combat. It even has it where there's multiple units that you're fighting against and multiple units with you. You can ride on the SBS or what are those called? The subflight systems,
Yeah.
SFS,
SFS.
and the giant gun thing that you can stand on. I forget what it's
Oh
called.
yeah, the Mega Rider from
Yeah,
Double Zeta. Yeah.
but it's cool that this game does all of that, and it's on the 3DS. And I think it didn't come out in the US, so obviously people didn't know about it. But it is a super competent Gundam game. I played the PSP ones, and then I was playing this 3DS one, and I was like, you know what, I got to go buy a 3DS, and I bought a Japanese one, modded it so that it can. Yeah, it's there's a couple things I did. It's
Oh
the
yeah, I
pro
see you got the pistol grips on there. It's like
Yeah, it because without it, when I used to have the Zelda,
Yeah.
Majora's Mask, and I had to buy a grip because there's no way that I can play long sessions.
Oh yeah, it's so uncomfortable.
And
So now,
yeah,
question: do you think that the 3D is essential to the gameplay? Because I have a 2DS because
yeah,
I didn't care for the 3D system. Like, and again, this is one of those things where it's like you and I definitely appreciate different things about video games, and like
yeah.
I chose to. Well, I didn't buy a 2DS. I stole my little brother's, but but I have a 2DS. Would you say that it would still play just as well on my
Yes,
2DS as it does on your 3DS?
exactly. Just as well. It's so easy to mod. I can give you instructions on that later. It's so easy to do.
Yes.
Um, and that's exactly it. The 3D doesn't add any functionality benefit to the gameplay experience, but for the atmospheric experience, the way they do draw distance, the way that I was in space and Musai shot a laser at me and I saw it coming. I'm like, oh my God. And I dashed away, and then it's like coming at the screen. Like it, I loved that feeling because the space combat in the game is so fun because in the background, you see all those explosions going on. You have the giant their carriers are flying around, and you can blow them up if you can, or try to fight other. Like
So
this is
awesome.
like that style of game needs to be a triple A console release. Just make a third person action game that's and this is what's funny. The same team made SD Gundam Battle Alliance. That was their next Gundam game after this. So
Interesting.
the combat is there in the graphics, but the SD look is the thing that
Yeah,
um
we always
yeah, I
we
know.
always bemoan the SD.
But what was cool is, from playing it again, it starts at 0079. It actually plays the music from the shows, but it
That's always very
also
cool. Very
plays
immersive.
yeah, see, that's the thing. So 3D, listen to the music, but then it also plays the music from all the previous games. You know how like Gundam music shared, and
Yeah.
so it has everything.
That's
Like
the best part about, like, playing GBO2 and then you hear, like, one of those Zionic Front themes kick
yeah,
on when you hit the ground.
I know, and I love that in GBO2 they added the option to
Yeah.
select what
Change
music
your
you want to
soundtrack.
play. Yeah, I love that. So I got to say, this is a great game that is sadly overlooked. I'm going to be doing a review on it. And, it's one of those things where, yeah, you'd have to buy a Japanese 3DS and the game to get it. And the game's not expensive. I think it was $20, 20 something dollars.
Not
So
bad.
I will use ROMs and emulators when there's no other way. If this was like one of those $100 plus games, and I didn't want a 3DS, maybe I would just stick with emulating. But I also wanted to get the 3DS because I was trying to emulate just DS games in general. And you can do it if you have two. Like I have a monitor below my monitor, so I was able to do it, but it's not the same, especially if you have
No.
to do touch controls. Like Castlevania: Dawn of Sorrow uses touch controls. So,
Now that said, I've got a Wacom Cintiq that's like, one of my drawing tablets, and so when I
oh
do
yeah,
my 3DS emulation, like for instance, I'll do like Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time 3DS, like the remakes, I'll play it all on one screen over here and like use my pen to do the touch screen.
oh, so you've done that?
Yeah,
Oh, that is cool.
it's not as fun as having the handheld, but yeah, I mean, it's possible. There are ways to do it.
Hey, JB, I need to then hook up with you because I actually own Operation Troy. I got it working on
Nice.
a emulator, but it does a thing where depending on where I turn, everything turns black. So I'll need to get with you later, maybe if you can kind of help me figure out how to get past that. Because yeah, the Operation Troy is the one where you start as a soldier on the ground, with your Federation arms, and then like you'll see the mobile
Yeah.
suits and they land and like, oh, that's just
Now you
kick
wanna
ass
talk
stuff.
about immersive, that's
Yeah. All this stuff would have done so well in the US, I think. You know what I mean? Like these are like games that US or English speakers would love to play, you know?
yeah. Well, and I think that these all kinda came out during that sort of dark age, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where yeah, but it's funny because every once in a while they would port something and it's like or translate something. It's like, well, why this game? Out of all of the games that you could port over. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'll get uh more into the 3DS one later. So what I want to talk about now is because what happened was first I was doing research on the Freedom movie because I was like, I really want to see this. What information's out there? And that made me be like, what's going on with this Jordan Vogt Roberts live action movie? And so I did that search I went to his IMDb page and it said he's directing it, but it's called Gundam 1, the live action movie. Like,
Interesting.
it's very interesting that even the synopsis was in a way explaining what happens at side 7, right? Side 7. Is that
Yeah.
is that the right colony? Sometimes
Yeah,
side
side
3 is the Xeon one. Side 7 is the okay.
is yeah, where Amuro was.
Yeah, because in the synopsis or the summary, it's saying that Xeon invaders. So that could be where they change up, or they're just wording it like that to make a quick, easy to understand summary. Even though because they weren't really invading, they were more of snooping for something.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, it's
anyway,
like, how would you describe A New Hope to someone, right? How would you describe the idea of like, okay, without the context of like the greater empire and stuff, all you have are these stormtroopers landing on a planet and murdering some kid's parents. Well,
yeah,
adoptive parents.
yeah, I guess that's interesting because it kind of starts where it's about a rebellion and an empire, but then it focuses on a farm boy.
Yeah.
And you could almost say the story is about a farm boy that gets thrust into an adventure after his parents get murdered by the galactic authorities or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, or his,
So,
yeah, not his
yeah, in
parents,
a
but
similar way, like if you were trying to exclude the greater context going on in Gundam, you just have these Xeon guys showing up on a colony,
yeah.
killing a whole bunch of people, and then maybe not a farm boy, but like a little tech head boy, gets called up to action.
Yeah. In what's interesting then for the TV show synopsis, it worded it as if the people in space got tired of being suppressed by Earth, so they're fighting back.
Mm,
So here's my thought. If they're calling the movie Gundam 1 live action movie, and it even says in there that the point of the movie is to be a close adaptation, or that could have been someone like me that went to edit IMDb and was like, I want this to be an adaptation. But it's
that's true.
so that makes me think, okay, then there will be a Gundam 2, there'll be a Gundam 3. So then what
Yeah.
would the TV show be? Here's my idea, and it's what I came up with before anyone else. You make the original 079, the movie trilogy, and then you make the TV show Zeta. That
Mm,
I think that's because the way the synopsis is for Zeta for the show, you could say that's Zeta. You could, but because because they frame it as if Earth is the bad guys in a way, and
Yeah.
that's the Titans. So I think that would be the best way to go about it, or it could be where they have the movie trilogy and then the TV show is just something else during that time frame, filling
Which is
in the
kinda
gap.
like Wing. Like, Gundam Wing has the same sort of thing where Earth is the bad guy, like, the Earth Sphere Alliance are the bad guys, and it's the colonies rejecting
Yeah.
the Earth Sphere Alliance. So, I mean, there's definitely,
Oh,
there
what if that's what they do, where they make a Wing live action show, but then the 0079 movie?
that would be the way to please all the fans.
Because what you said right there is exactly what he said. They're trying to figure out a way to please everybody. To and uh, that yeah, that would be. But okay, another thing. So Legendary Pictures is the one that's making this Gundam movie and the TV show. They also make the Godzilla vs Kong movies and the Monarch TV show. So they're
True.
already used to making these kind of bigger CGI movies and the TV show that goes along with it.
Now, I'm gonna call you out on this because they also are responsible for Enola Holmes.
Oh, yeah. Although I liked that.
I'm just no,
I
I actually liked the first Enola Holmes movie. I thought it was a kind of fun twist, like, to have,
Henry
like, hey,
Cavill,
there's
yeah,
a third Holmes
Holmes,
sibling that
yeah.
happens to be a detective as well, but she solves, like, it's almost like, the Hardy Boys or, what am I thinking of? Like, the girls' teenage detective agency that am I thinking of, like, the Babysitters Club books or something like that?
Maybe, but that is a thing. So,
Yeah, but that's the thing, and I think that, like, the first movie was fantastic, the second one was kinda
I didn't
lacking,
see the
but
second, but everything about the movie on paper would be and that's why I think I liked it, even though I thought the story was boring. The pacing,
yeah,
the story, but, like, the actors they had involved, like, the idea of Henry Cavill being Sherlock Holmes, like, that
mhm.
that needs to be its own movie, not just, like, even though he is
The
coming out with another movie where he
I
looks
mean,
like
it's funny to me that, like, Henry Cavill being wasted on, films and franchises that are intended to be flops is really unfortunate. Like
and the fact that they're not using him as James Bond, like, that shoulda just happened, even if it was just a one-off.
yeah,
Have Guy Ritchie do
and I
Henry
mean,
Cavill and
to
James Bond.
To be fair, like, I don't think that he was a terrible Geralt. I do prefer the Geralt of, the Witcher 3 video game. I thought he had a little bit more charisma. He was a little bit funnier, but I don't think that Henry Cavill was the problem with that show by a long shot.
No, you know what, I didn't watch that show, I never got into Witcher, but I like him. Like, I feel like there's a lot he could do, even with the way he looked in Witcher remind me of Alucard in Castlevania.
Yeah.
Al
There's one thing that you can't accuse Henry Cavill of, and that's like not caring. Like he gives everything to whatever role he's
yeah,
doing. Like whether it's, Sherlock Holmes as a side character or,
the
The
bad
Witcher.
guy in one of the Mission Impossibles, and I think he
Oh
was like
yeah, with his little arm reload
yeah,
move.
and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., where he played kind of a James Bond character anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's
I'm
he's
looking
great.
forward to seeing that Argyle movie with him. But yeah,
Oh,
sorry, we've gone off on a
no, that's
crazy tangent.
listen to this, Rowan Atkinson should be a James Bond. Now, well, I guess he wants a serious role. So you mean seriously? Because I know he has the movie. I forget what it's called, but he's like a James Bond. I forget what
Oh
it's called.
yeah.
Um,
Johnny English.
Johnny English. There you
Right, it was
go.
kind of like a Austin Powers type deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But that would be cool. Rowan Atkinson doing something serious.
yeah.
I
Well,
think he
Rowan
has. I just haven't
Atkinson's a
seen it.
very have you ever seen Rowan Atkinson's stand-up?
No.
He's a very Rowan Atkinson reminds me a lot of, like, a Robin Williams type character, where it's like, he always plays these types of funny roles in movies and stuff, but he's a very thoughtful, sensitive, like, intelligent guy, and
Uh,
you get that from his stand-up.
yeah, it's like he's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Like Robin Williams would do that, where it's like there's a little act here and act there, depending on the situation. Yeah, I love Mr. Bean. I haven't watched it in a while, but that's one of those shows you can just watch and
Oh,
just
yeah.
just watch it. Yeah, that's crazy. Um, okay, well, thanks, JB, for the that info there. I am
Xenia?
gonna have
Yeah.
to copy, paste, so then I can do this later because I wanted to play through Operation Troy.
And
Um,
look, I'm just gonna confirm for those that are watching is I have a screen share going on. I can literally see him copying and pasting this text. It's
yeah,
not it's
so thank you. That's gonna be very helpful.
no,
Um,
no.
Operation Troy should be on modern consoles. Yeah, it's what everyone wants, where you're on the ground, you jump into, and I hate to say this, but it looks better than GBO2 when it comes to being on the ground and then going into a mobile suit.
No, that's one of the things that, like, GBO2 is definitely designed around the mobile suit combat. When you get out of a mobile suit, even just the character models, the way that the pilots move around, they look like little rubber
Yeah,
the
it's like how the camera is fixed, right? To based on the movement. Like
Yeah,
that's a
or
thing games either get or they don't. There's like two aspects. Where you fix the camera based on their animation.
yeah,
Sometimes it just looks odd. Okay, so back on this movie thing, because the other thing I thought was interesting was Jordan Vogt Roberts directed a movie called I totally forget, like American Ham or something, that
yeah,
starred, or it was like a stand-up, and it
it was a
starred,
stand-up special.
yeah, Ron Swanson, Nick
Uh,
Offerman,
yeah, Nick Offerman.
which is the best idea. Everyone has already come up. This is not my idea. This is
No,
everyone's idea.
yeah.
Oh, see you, Dan Vince. But
Hey, cheers, buddy.
the idea of Nick Offerman as Ramba Rawl, and
Yeah,
like that totally works. Both just seeing him in Parks and Rec, he could pull off that character because Ron has that charm on top of his seriousness, you know?
yeah.
Like,
And the nice thing about Ramba Rawls is that he's not a particularly, like, physical character, so it's not like you don't need Nick Offerman to be this, like, physical stud. He doesn't need to throw Amuro around a room or
right.
anything. And that's one of the things that I love about the Goof pilots from Mobile Suit Gundam series is, like, you've got Norris Packard and Ramba Rawl,
Oh yeah.
and they're both these, like, dad bod style guys. Like,
Older,
they're
smarter,
paunchy, they're
wiser.
older. Yeah,
They don't seem to have that like energy of an evil genius or like someone that's younger that wants to get ahead. They seem to be more like they know they can't necessarily make it as a leader, but they kind of can as supporting the troops around them. And it's
exactly.
really good. Again, good writing by Yoshiyuko Tomino, and then good casting. It's right there. Just, just do it.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, if you haven't seen that stand-up special, American Ham, um, it's fantastic. Nick
oh
Offerman is a funny guy,
yeah.
and his relationship with his wife,
Oh yeah.
Megan Mullally, is
Yeah.
one of the most wholesome marriages in Hollywood. Y you very rarely get to see these types of relationships play out in Hollywood where a couple stays together for, like, decades and just genuinely loves each other for a long time,
And it
and,
affects
Nick
their art
yeah.
because how because him and his wife were in Parks and Rec playing kind of like opposites, and it's hilarious. Like they know how to play off each other.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, that is kind of a cool idea to think about. Like whenever you're casting a movie, it's like, okay, if we need these two roles, are there people that already know each other well or they're related already? You know what I mean? To kind of be like, okay, these people know how to play off each other. Like if I was gonna make a comedy and I want Ryan Reynolds in it, it's like Ryan Reynolds, who's a friend of yours, and it could be the guy from Always Sunny, and it's like you already know they're friends. That would make a good dynamic in a movie.
Exactly, and that's why you have those types of comedy troupes that always stick together, right? Like, Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, Jay Baruchel,
Oh
like, that
yeah,
whole crowd
right.
of Canadian actors and voice actors that, they vibe with each other, and even if maybe one of them is not perfect for a given role, the chemistry that they bring to the table with their co-stars makes it so that it lands,
Yeah,
and,
I
yeah.
agree with that. That's why those movies are fun, and they don't make them too much anymore. I think because maybe cost or whatever. It's very interesting. I think both movie industry, video game industry is going through this huge change right now, where a lot of it has to do with money.
Of course.
But here's something neat that I find neat. So Ben Schwartz, who does the voice of Sonic in the Sonic movies, he's also in Parks and Rec, and he's hilarious.
He's the
Yeah.
worst.
That was awesome. That was so good. But he also, I stumbled upon these episodes of Game Grumps where he's like playing through Castlevania games and just crushing them.
Yeah.
It's so weird how like me and him could be best friends. Like if he ever wanted to join this podcast, sorry, Steven, but it would be him and I, and
Yeah.
whatever.
Maybe bring on Jenny Slate to every once in a while to be Mona Lisa Saperstein.
Yeah. Man.
No, and yeah. No, he's fantastic. And the things that he brought to the Sonic role were great, and he really does yeah.
He knows how to do
He's part of that culture. He's
Yeah,
not
exactly. That's what I was
a
thinking.
lot of people complain when, you have a guy like, I don't want to name names or anything, but what was the guy that played Thanos?
Oh yeah. I know you're talking about. I can't think of his
Yeah.
name. He had a dad that acted too.
Yeah,
Right.
he also took up the role of Jonah Hex, which was another
Oh yeah.
comic book movie that was terrible, and he even went on the record as saying, like, "Hey, I'm only taking this role because I know that the script is so bad, there's nothing I could do to screw it up."
Oh,
It's
interesting.
like so, he's one of those types of guys, and so to bring it back kind of full circle is like you have guys like Henry Cavill, you have guys like Ben Schwartz that really love the content that they're creating for,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Ben Schwartz is a gamer. He played Castlevania, he voiced Sonic, like he brings that passion to what he's doing. Henry Cavill, same thing. He's the one rolling around the Witcher series with his copy of The Witcher, telling everybody that this is
Yeah.
how it should be. When you have a guy like Josh Brolin, thank you, King Dylan, that
Oh, there you go.
that doesn't care about what they're creating for. They don't care about the franchise. They don't care about the story. It's very apparent when they when they are
Yeah.
part of it.
It's true. And sometimes it's all you need, to like get everyone else excited. As we were talking about Ben Schwartz, I was like, he could be Azan Gable. Or not. Bleach his hair blonde.
He definitely has the height of the hair for
Did
sure.
you see that movie Renfield?
No, I didn't.
He played a bad guy in it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I bet he nailed it.
Yeah, he
I
did,
mean,
because it's almost like his character, Jean Ralphio. Almost, because he's almost like a spoiled kid, but he's still doing bad stuff. So, but yeah, oh yeah, King Dylan bringing up how now Henry Cavill is going to work on that Warhammer, either movie or show.
yeah.
That's funny because Warhammer is something I've never been into except for the games, but
Yeah,
for
same
a
here.
movie, heck yeah, that looks like that would be an awesome movie. Just seeing the CGI stuff in the Dawn of War games, the beginning CGI. But I wonder if this, and I can ask chat here, and someone already said Chris Pratt, that could be for everyone. But if we were to recast, now that we know that it could possibly be a Gundam UC, a 0079 movie, who would we now cast now that Timothy Chalamet is probably too old for Amuro?
Now just to clarify, is IMDb is one of those platforms that like anybody can edit, kind of like Wikipedia, right? Like they have a moderating team, but anybody can post.
From what I understand, yes. But also I've heard, because I follow a lot of movie news, that like that stuff is looked at carefully.
It's pretty heavily scrutinized. Okay.
Yeah. So part of me thinks because maybe a lot of English speaking people don't care about Gundam, it's easy to sneak something into the IMDb. But
Yeah.
at the same time, maybe when it has to do with a company like Legendary Pictures, who, they make a lot of movies, and I think they do it at moderate budgets because they haven't had a lot of issues lately in terms of production. So I would think maybe they are monitoring that stuff. You would think so, right? Out of everyone that's involved in the production, they're gonna see what's on IMDb, and
Yeah, I would hope so.
yeah, yeah, that's very interesting stuff.
It'll be corrected next week if not the case.
Yeah, we'll see. Actually, I want to see top. Top actors of like 2024, although it just
Right.
started. Because I'm
Eh,
trying to think, what are some actors like? I'm looking at like Killian Murphy, Paul Giamatti, Bradley Cooper, Jeffrey Wright. All of those could have a role in a Gundam movie and be awesome.
Maybe it's just they all seem too old for the roles that.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, okay, this would have to be someone that's like the upper like Zabi family or Federation officials like General Revel.
Yeah.
Because you're right, a lot of the actors that we all know and we know what they could do, it's because of seeing them do it for so long because now they're old. But a
Right.
lot of the main characters in these Gundam shows are young. So, um,
And it makes it tough, but, typically, like, obviously, like, 30-year-old actors are famous for playing, like, 17-year-olds, so.
yeah, and I think that could well, so yeah, I wonder if one of the Stranger Things kids would be like an Amuro. Like, I wonder if that's the direction you go, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's probably what you're gonna be looking at is something like that.
I still think Patrick Wilson needs to be Bright, even though he's like 30 years older than Bright. Like, he looks exactly like him.
And I think he definitely nails that role. If you've seen any of, like, the Insidious movies,
Yep.
like, he definitely has that aura of, like, "I'm the guy that's in charge, I'm the one that's going to,"
He has
kind of.
range.
Yeah, he's
He
fantastic.
he has range, and it's pretty cool because I think those horror movies, he does a bunch of them. He produces them now because I think he did it just as a job, but then it's like, "Oh, this is like a successful way that I can continue to get some income and then do other movies like Aquaman and get a a lot of money probably." Um,
Few extra bucks. Um,
yeah, and I'm trying to wonder, like, or trying to think. I almost feel like, and I think this is a true thing with Hollywood, we're almost like getting out of stars. We're like, it's less about movie stars. I don't watch a movie just because Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. You
I
know?
think Anthony Mackie said the same thing about, like, the MCU, during a panel
Oh
at
yeah,
one of the Comic Cons. I think we've talked about this before, is, like, Anthony Mackie said that, like, the age of the movie star is over. Like, you don't go to see the next Stallone movie or the next Schwarzenegger movie. You go to see the next Captain America. You go to see the next, like, the character. And, yeah, I think that there's definitely some truth to that. And one of the things that the MCU has been good at is, obviously they've not been great for a couple of years ever since Endgame, like keeping
yeah,
audiences interested. But one of the things that they've been really good at is taking either like mid-level or comedy actors and elevating them to dramatic roles that put them in the light of an A-lister, right? Like, no one would have thought Chris Pratt could be a leading man in an action movie.
I know.
It's
After you see him in Parks and Rec, it's like,
yeah. Or,
but
I mean, even go further back, and he was on the OC as, like, a
oh,
stoner burnout, like,
I never saw that. That's interesting. But I think that makes sense though, because a lot of time, what it is, it's almost like play.
yeah.
Like, they're playing more than, not that they're not taking it seriously. You get these thespians, these actors that went to acting school, and it's more of
Mhm.
technique. But then you get these actors that like to play and goof off, and they're playing. They're like, okay, I'm going to be this. And it's almost like they enjoy, okay, I'm this lead hero, and this is how I'm going to be the lead hero,
Yeah.
like we all want to do. And um, yeah, I think that's neat. Like, y- that's the one thing I might get a lot of crap for this, but like, I think Hugh Jackman does a great Wolverine, but I
Yeah.
think they could have found someone better.
Probably.
It just
Probably.
Hugh Jackman's a great actor, but but they didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel like it had. Not that it needs to be campy, but more of this. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but I think my
No,
take
no,
is
I'm
valid.
I'm with you. But, like we said, in much the same way where an actor who doesn't take things seriously can really drag a movie down, an actor who does take things seriously can really elevate a movie. And
Yeah.
I think an example of that you and I will both agree with is Peter Weller in RoboCop. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
this was supposed to be like a stupid satire movie, like full of like boobs and guns and drugs from the 80s. And Peter Weller comes in and he's like, I'm method acting as RoboCop, and I will not respond to the word Peter. I am either Murphy or Robo. Like,
Did he do that while they were filming it?
yeah, so for the first 2 weeks, Peter
Wow,
Weller would not and it's funny because,
that's
you
awesome.
had guys like Miguel Ferrara who had known
Oh,
Peter Weller for, like, 10 years, like, they'd both been in movies together prior to that, and he's like, "Hey, Pete, you doing alright?" And he's just like, "Pete,
that is
Pete,
neat.
hey." He was like, "I do not know Peter." Like,
I love that. I love that. That because yeah, that's like an actor that's like, I want to be this, or I need to show this role,
I
and
need
it's
to live this
yeah,
role, like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's cool stuff. So yeah, Peter Weller could, but then again, it's like yeah, everyone is young in the Gundam movie that we would cast, even though they almost look like they're older, and they're probably voiced by people
It's
that are
true.
older in a lot of
Definitely,
instances. So.
almost definitely.
But you know what? That actually brings up a good point, and I wouldn't mind if for this Gundam live action movie they did that. They're like, "Well, we're gonna change the ages of everyone. Maybe just age them up a little bit." And
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. I wouldn't.
I mean, if you aged Amuro from 15 to, like, 18 or 20,
Yeah.
and he's, like, maybe just well, it's funny because in the novel version, he is, like, an enlisted cadet. He's not
Yeah, that's
just a
right.
random civilian, and so I think that that probably would play into people's sensibilities a little bit more, but I wonder if that doesn't change the context of, like, what it means for people to be, like, 'cause, like, I'm
Young
trying to think of,
and
like, military movies, like, can you imagine if Jake Gyllenhaal in Jarhead, who was having the same mental breakdowns as Amuro and, his commanding officers saying, like, "Just get in the Gundam," it's like
yeah. That's true. That is a interesting part that makes Gundam interesting is Amuro's age, especially when he has to go through that teen angst where it's like, everyone's kind of bossing him around, but not really like seeing how he is, and then he's dealing with all that and then wanting to run away. You're not going to get that from someone older. So
no,
definitely Amuro
and
has
you
to
would
be
have
age.
the audience would have less sympathy for them.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. And yeah, they would have to, yeah, but I could see them maybe aging up Bright just a little bit,
Yeah,
just to
that would
get
be fine.
Patrick Wilson to do it. Man, that would I don't know. He looks just like him.
Yeah, I think
The
Patrick
hairline.
Wilson would nail that,
Yeah.
but yeah, to your point, I mean, what have you got? Like, the actors from Stranger Things, Timothy Chalamet is a little bit older now. I wonder if they would try to cram in that kid from, that played the Joker, Barry Keoghan,
Oh,
the Irish
yeah.
actor. He's kind of a young up and comer that's been really popular lately, but I don't know a role that would really suit him.
Yeah, he does have an interesting face that could be Yazan Gable. I don't know.
We're just everyone's Yaza. That's
Yeah. Well,
no, good.
no, this was good. This was a fun talk. I'm yeah, we're getting here near the end. I'm just excited about where they're going to go with this Gundam live action movie show. It looks like there's new news about it. That's what I've mainly been wanting to cover with this channel, like when I started it. So, like, I can't wait when all that stuff comes out because I'll be breaking down the
Alright.
trailers. Uh,
Now, Jonathan Bot Roberts is also, um, going to be doing the Metal Gear Solid movie.
Yeah, that's another one that's on there. It's showing that. Yeah,
So, I mean, we're talking about a guy that's handled a lot of or, well, that's slated to handle a lot of really big franchises.
but I don't understand how that works because like the last thing he did was Kong Skull Island. I have to get that right. And
Mhm.
uh, and before that, not much. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like one of those things where Legendary just likes working with him. Maybe he's just easy to work with. I think that happens a lot. If directors know how to be on time, wrangle people, get things done under budget.
Yeah. Take notes, people. This is, like, good career advice, is, like, being easy to work with is more important than the quality of work you do, by far.
Exactly. Yeah, because if you don't do good quality work, if you're easy to work with, someone's going to help you.
Yeah.
That's I've learned that. Um, but anyway, we'll end with from Gerger Girag. I'm sorry, man. I am butchering your name. Zurkov is saying Steven Spielberg should come on board. Steven Spielberg, huh?
Well, with that, should I end with my famous story about Steven
Yeah,
Spielberg?
yeah.
So I infamously ruined a shot for Steven Spielberg. Have
Wow.
you guys heard this story?
No.
Okay, so I was an extra in the movie Lincoln, which was shot in my hometown many, many years ago. I was playing the role of a Union soldier, and I was instructed, me and a compatriot of mine were supposed to walk across the camp during one of Lincoln's speeches. It was during the speech where he's giving in the rain. And, just as a background shot, they've got the extras kind of walking across the camp and stuff. The assistant director said, "Hey, when you guys get to the other side of the camp, there's going to be another assistant director there that's going to tell you where to go, and then you're going to go back across." Well, when I got there, there was no assistant director, and so my compatriot and I fell in with the nearest crowd of soldiers that was walking, and it happened to be one of the, all African American platoons that was with the Union Army, and so 2 of these things did not look like the rest, and I heard from the tent outside in the rain, Steven Spielberg yell, "Cut," because we were in the background ruining the shot. So we had to
Wow.
do it again, and be assured that there was an assistant director on the other side of the camp when I
That
was walking the
wow.
second time.
Wow, that's an amazing story. That is really cool that you could tell that. Are you able to see yourself in the movie?
There's only one scene where you can kind of roughly see me, and it's, during one of the scenes with, what's the kid's name? Um,
I didn't see Lincoln.
from
Probably should.
he was in the Batman movie and in Inception, um, the kid from 500 Days of Summer. Who am I thinking of?
Oh, yeah.
Man, my brain is going out the window.
Yeah, Joseph
Joseph
Gordon-Levitt?
Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, so
Really
there's one scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt where I'm in the background that you can actually see me, but
wow. Love it. That's a really cool story.
so yes, don't get Steven Spielberg for this movie because I will 100% ruin the movie for you.
And I hate to be that guy, but, like, there's only some things of Steven Spielberg I like, but I do think he set a tone that a lot of filmmakers then copied from. Late 70s,
Oh,
early
definitely.
80s. Even his first movie, with the truck, I forget what it's called, Drive or something. It's the truck that's, like, chasing someone. I forget what it's called. You gotta see it. And then he did, like, the 2nd or 3rd episode of Columbo also. So, yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
that's about it, for this episode. This is a great time. Glad you were here. Glad to
Hey,
see
thank you
everyone
for
in the
having me.
chat. Love talking Gundam stuff. But yeah, until next time, guys, have a good weekend. Have a good day. We'll talk later.